151 days later, we have a state budget and much more, including increased funding for education.
What we did pass in the Senate was very good for education, and what we had was an increase in the baseline funding for our K-12 education to over $80 million.
I think districts are talking now that they might be able to give some raises to teachers, but it certainly doesn't make up for the over $2 billion in cuts that K-12 education has experienced over the past few years.
We'll hear from those and other lawmakers on the state's rebuilding of school funding, plus analysis of the just completed legislative session and its political drama. It's Arizona Week.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support. Once again, your moderator, Michael Chiha.
Lawmakers adjourned early this morning after a most contentious 151-day-long session. It saw the Republican Party split, the Democrats gain some power, and Governor Jan Brewer get pretty much what she wanted. Here for analysis is Luigi del Puerto, assistant editor at the Arizona Capital Times. Welcome, Luigi.
Thank you, Michael.
So how did Governor Brewer get what she wanted out of this legislative session?
She wore them all down. She was very persistent. She was dogged. She had a game plan going into the session. She campaigned for Medicaid expansion as if she were campaigning for an office. You know, she had rallies all over the state. She tried to persuade the public first, and then was hoping that that kind of pressure would build up, and that would help to persuade lawmakers to rally behind her proposal. And she was also very, very savvy in her use of the authorities, the powers of her office. I mean, she effectively used the veto power. I don't think anybody would disagree with that, whether you agree with the governor's proposals or proposal or you disagreed with it. She carried a bigger stick, and she wielded it very effectively.
Now, with this, the governor has obviously gained some power and authority and some recognition for it. She has kind of hinted that she might think about finding a way around the constitutional term limit so she could seek another term. Does this give her any impetus in that regard?
I don't think so, Michael. I think the idea that she could run for a third term has been raised by some folks close to her. Honestly, I did not really see anybody else being serious about the possibility of a third term for the governor.
And does that mean that if she recognizes that she's not going to get another term, this is then her swan song, if you will, she could just take all the risks needed to make this happen? How much of a factor was that, do you think?
Well, I think it was a big factor. I think the governor clearly saw that this is her chance to leave behind a legacy for the state. She thought of Medicaid expansion as the one thing she can do for the state. The fact that she essentially went out swinging and was very dogged in her efforts to get this thing through, was very adamant, was very single-minded, and very purposeful in her pursuit of this big policy issue. Just showed you that in a way she wasn't really thinking about elections anymore. She was thinking about her term as a governor, and perhaps the fact that I think she instinctively has accepted that this is her last two terms in office.
Now on the...
not last two terms, last 2 years in office.
Last 2 years, right. Now on the legislative battlefield, the Republicans took more wounds than anybody. Are they going to recover quickly from those wounds? Will there be long-term effects from it, especially going into an election year?
That's the worry by many in the Republican Party. We've heard people essentially say that this could spill over even to the next election. In fact, we have heard Republicans essentially threatening their colleagues with political repercussions. And we expect that many of those who support, or at least some of those who supported the governor expansion plan, would be challenged in a primary. And, for example, Dr. Kelly Ward, who opposed the expansion plan, ran on an anti-Obamacare platform, and Obamacare, of course, is pretty toxic within the Republican grassroots base. And the fact that she won pretty handily and defeated an incumbent legislator at the time showed you that there's a chance that those Republicans who did rally behind the governor might see their careers, at least in the legislature, ending next year.
And on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats gained some power for a change, or for the first time in a long time in the legislature. Can they do anything with that? Can that be sustained in any way?
It is very telling that after the Medicaid expansion debate and vote, and when they had passed it, the Republican caucus in the Senate and in the House banded together, joined together, and passed a proposal that the Democrats had vehemently argued against and opposed. It goes to show you that this coalition of Republicans and Democrats will probably see that emerge every now and then. However, I don't think it's going to be on a permanent basis.
You're speaking about the election reform package, is that not correct?
That is correct.
And then this whole argument over Medicaid isn't over, because lawsuits are already being discussed over the notion that a 2/3 vote was needed because some say it was a tax increase. And the proposal for the ballot in 2014 to repeal it. What's going to come of those? Do you see legs for those?
The fact that this is that Obamacare is viewed to be very toxic among the grassroots Republicans would tell you that there's probably some legs. To what extent they actually get the less than 90,000 signatures that they need to put this referendum on the ballot, to what extent we would actually see that happening, that remains to be seen. In addition to that, they've got quite a long ways to go. In addition to gathering those signatures, they're also going to likely face a lawsuit basically challenging the idea of questioning what the supporters of the plan consider to be a budget bill via the referendum process. So there's quite a phalanx of lawsuits, if you will, that critics of it would have to go through before they can see this on the ballot, assuming they get the signatures to do that.
Almost lost in the shadow of the Medicaid controversy were a number of other things that were occurring in the legislature, including the passage of the budget overall, about a 3.5% increase from this year's spending level. Tell us a little bit about what you saw in that budget and how did that come about?
Well, the budget for next year is about $8.8 billion. It's about 3.46% higher than the spending levels that we have now. This budget is expected to, if the estimates prove to be true, to wipe out the structural imbalance of the state by fiscal year 2016. And because we are going to draw down funds from the federal government for our expansion population, we are expecting that would help free up some money in this upcoming budget, and they had in fact used some of that to provide for certain programs for next year.
Just a little over a half a minute remaining, Luigi. In that time, any political wisdom that can be taken from this legislative session for the people of Arizona, long-term lessons learned?
There was a lot of discussion about what it means to have a democracy and whether what happened in the House and the Senate reflected the kind of democracy that we want. That's interesting because if you look at other countries, other democratic countries, for example, that's the reason why they have a coalition of parties that become the ruling government, because essentially at the end of the day, what matters in a democracy is the number of people that you have in a chamber that supports a proposal. And in this particular case, they had the support to pass it. And of course, the worry is that, at least by some legislators and some lobbyists, is that this would have a negative impact, a damage potentially on the legislative process.
Luigi Del Puerto, Arizona Capital Times, thanks so much for speaking with me.
Thank you.
The legislature's main duty is passing the budget, about half of which is funding for public education. We spoke with 4 lawmakers about it. Bear in mind, these interviews occurred before final budget passage, but nearly all the funding levels to which they refer are in the final budget. First, Republican State Senator Kimberly Yee of Phoenix. As chair of the Senate Education Committee, did you get what you feel is needed in the K-12 education budget?
Well, we're currently in the middle of budget negotiations, as you know, and the Senate passed a budget. It's now over at the House. It's my understanding that the House is reformatting that budget to look a little different from what we passed here in the Senate. But what we did pass in the Senate was very good for education. And what we had was an increase in the baseline funding for our K-12 education to over $80 million. And that is on top of the $56 million that we put in new funding from last year's budget.
So are any of the governor's education reform proposals being funded, and could you detail those?
Yes, the governor's education reform proposal was for performance funding, and I can talk about that in more detail. The amount that she requested was significantly higher than what the Senate and the House is looking at, but with negotiations in her office, we determined that we would provide seed money, and that's sort of some startup money to look at beginning this program. It's a robust, wonderful program, but we have to put the policy items in place before we fully fund it. And so what we've done is we've put about $3 million in as a startup to begin the program, which is determining how we fund schools based on their performance, their academic improvements year to year. And that provides an incentive for schools that do well.
As opposed to the current funding formula, which is based strictly on how many students show up for school, right?
That's right, and that will actually still be in place. We'll still have that ADM related funding, which is academic. It's the average daily membership funding. However, this is a bonus on top of that. So again, it is in addition to the way we currently fund, but it is an incentive for schools to do well year over year. And if they do well in their improvement year over year, then they will get bonus money, and that's what we're talking about with this $3 million.
What percentage of total K-12 funding would you think is appropriate to be performance-based?
You know, we need to look at the program and see what that looks like. I believe that at some point we need to look at performance funding overall so that schools do get some sort of initiative to be able to do well rather than receive money for failing year over year. And that's certainly something that the education community also desires. We don't want to reward schools from continuing to go down a southbound path. We really want to increase their funding and continue to improve what they're doing and to provide those models for other schools to be able to replicate across the entire state. This would do that. And so what we need to do in the next year is to determine what those policy programs will be across the state and then determine how that should be funded, of course, according to how we can afford it as well in our budget.
And speaking of affording it, for the last few years, the state has not done much funding of capital for schools, either in the classroom, textbooks, computers, et cetera, or construction and building.
Right.
There's a little money in this budget proposal for that. What do you see going forward with that? We
had for a number of years with the economy, obviously, as the economy is in a downturn, the budget obviously has to afford what we have in our coffers, and so we have had to slim down in some funding dealing with school-related deficiencies, renewal programs for capital costs. But this year we have been able to provide a little extra funding in those areas. We're trying to phase that back in as the budget is hopefully looking better over the course of the next few years. We're hoping at least, and as we see the funding increases, we're going to see where we need those schools. For instance, there are some areas in our state that do require new schools, whereas there are some areas in our state that actually are decreasing in their population. And so we're trying to shift that money so that we can ensure that all schools are properly funded and that the capital needs are there. We do have some money for soft capital, and that will pertain to the new school reform programs that we have in place in the course of the next couple of years to ensure that our teachers are well prepared in their teacher training programs and that we can use the technology across the state. That's a huge issue for Arizona. We have a broken system for our data inputs when the schools provide key elements of that improvement data to our Department of Education. And so the Department of Education has worked in this archaic data system for many, many years. Even when I was a staff member here, we were talking about creating a more updated information system for student information back then, and that was in the early 90s. Here we are with a system that is truly broken, and so the Superintendent of Public Instruction has asked for about $20 million, and so that is included in our Senate budget as well.
Last year there was an effort through voter initiative to establish what would have been a dedicated education fund in Arizona. Do you think some kind of a dedicated fund is needed for education?
Proposition 204 was proposed to the voters and not passed in the last general election, and so the money was dedicated for purposes education as well as infrastructure and transportation in that proposal. It did not pass, and so what we've seen here at the legislature following that defeat of that proposal is that we do need to look at various ways to reform funding in education in Arizona. And so those discussions are being had throughout various education communities and here at the legislature. And it will take time to determine how our budget will look, the general fund budget. It will always be a battle. Of course, we have other areas, healthcare, corrections, education. Those are all key areas that always have to share the same pot of money. And so what we have to determine is at what point do we determine if there's a specific dedicated funding mechanism for education, or if we ensure that we create a robust system here. The economy needs to improve so that we have more money in our state budget to be able to use for education and these other important programs.
One outcome different than what Senator Yee mentioned, the final budget includes a little more than $5 million for the state education database rather than the $22 million she and the Senate proposed. Now, two Democrats and their thoughts on K-12 funding. Looking at the education budget that the Senate passed, was it adequate for what the state's educational needs are?
It's not adequate. It's certainly better than what was in the president's budget before we did the amendments on the floor. It does make a few gains for our districts. I think districts are talking now that they might be able to give some raises to teachers, but it certainly doesn't make up for the over $2 billion in cuts that K-12 education has experienced over the past few years. It did add a little more money for the universities, but again, in terms of the cuts that have happened, that will take quite some time in order to change that situation.
What are you hearing about education funding in the budget that Speaker Andy Tobin has proposed?
Well, I will tell you this. The budget that Speaker Tobin has proposed as far as education doesn't quite meet the needs or the desires of the budget that we proposed as Democrats back in February, nor does it meet those of the governor. I would like to see the $82 million, which was proposed by the Senate for public education K through 12, brought to the table so that we can vote on it.
So you like the Senate's budget, at least as far as education goes?
Yes, I do. There are several points I like about the Senate budget. I think it addresses a lot of the problems and the needs of Arizonans, and especially with education. I mean, it's no secret that I'm a supporter of public education, and I believe that we need those monies in there to really put in process more deeply Common Core, school safety, some of the very important issues that our schools are facing today. And it will, investing in our education will affect our economy, there's no doubt. So I think it's a priority.
Where do you stand on the K-12 performance-based funding, one of the governor's key proposals in her education reform, and it didn't get a lot of funding from the Senate?
Well, there was a reason it didn't get a lot of funding. And as I said earlier, this is President Biggs's budget. He really had very little input from his membership, let alone Democrats. He has a real distrust of the performance model and has concerns about it. I myself have concerns, as well as other Democrats. We have looked at the models that have been created by a finance guru in education, David Garcia, and he has said that this will really hurt our low-income districts, our districts that have high minority population. It will really penalize them. And so the president has said the reason he put that low amount in there was just as a placeholder for the governor's plan, but that not to fund it at this point, so that there can be more work done, more study done, to assure that if that should be adopted in the future, that it does not hurt the districts that really need the help the most.
And then one other area of education funding that hasn't gotten much in the last few years is for capital, constructing schools, repairing schools, improving schools, and soft capital, classroom materials. A little bit of money in this budget, but not enough, in your opinion?
It's certainly not enough to meet the needs of the schools. Again, it's kind of like a little drop in the bucket, but doesn't get schools where they need to be.
Last year, there was an effort by the voters through an initiative to establish a dedicated fund for education. It failed at the poll, Proposition 204. Does Arizona need that kind of dedicated fund for K-12 education?
I believe that it does, because of the vagaries of the legislature. You never know who's going to be in control here, where the support for public education is going to be. And if there's a dedicated funding source, then we can be assured that our schools have the funding that they need to operate and to help kids to be successful.
That is going to depend on the legislature. We need to focus our attention on funding education properly. I mean, we're still ranked 49th. Arizona is still 49th in spending per student. If the legislature does not allot money to public education, we have to find a safeguarded way to protect our schools and to invest in our future.
Higher education also got more in the budget, with $30 million added to current levels. Tucson Representative Macario Saldate, a Democrat, spoke about it. You serve on the Higher Education Committee in the House, and I want to ask you if funding at the higher education level is adequate as you see it developing in the state budget.
I think it is. We could always use more. And certainly, having been in higher ed at the University of Arizona for 38 years, I know the need that we have, particularly at the student level all the way to the eminent scholar level. And it's a great expense, and it's a big economic driver for our state. But we could use more, but I think it's adequate at this point, and I'm hopeful that the Senate version will be intact and that we can work with that right through our process.
Now, the Senate version includes the parity in per student funding among the 3 state universities, so you favor that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Absolutely. I think that's fair. It's one of those situations where I think it's past situations that we have to bring to realign both NAU and ASU, and that's fine. But I think the future is what's important, and that is the performance type of budgeting that we're going to do. And that means that we're going to be producing more students, and hopefully across the board at different economic levels from different neighborhoods all across the state, and moving the middle class into higher ed, primarily aligning them to new jobs and career kind of orientations for them. And that's going to happen through higher ed, and it's going to happen to community colleges and technical schools. And certainly the higher education, the university system is playing a very, very important role in that.
You mentioned the performance-based funding, which Arizona is evolving toward at the higher education level and at K-12, but higher education is more advanced in implementing that. Are you satisfied with how that's going so far?
Yes, I am. I think there's a lot that has to be done in that area. It's difficult, but I think if the infrastructure, the technologies provided, and we support what we have at all 3 institutions, and look at the system more as a region, as a system of a driver for improving the economy from the U of A to ASU to NAU, I think we will do fine. And I think this performance kind of expectation is going to improve the situation for all our students in Arizona.
How do you see the academic community adapting to and accepting the idea of performance-based funding for the universities?
Well, I think we have the academic community as one of the most competitive parts. I think that we've worked with competition in higher ed for a long time. So the scholarly community, I think, is very well adapted to that situation and will do fine. Particularly, I think, and of course I would speak about the U of A in their eminent situation as doing very quality kind of research and teaching, as well as the community work that they provide for our state.
The enrollment movements that are occurring at all three state universities, most especially ASU and NAU, they are growing rapidly. The U of A is growing slowly. Are those adequate to meet the needs of the state's economy down the road?
I believe so. I do think that maybe the University of Arizona in particularly would be at an advantage possibly in terms of their grants, their outside funding, and that will make things more equitable, I think, in terms of that issue. But I don't think that we're at a disadvantage in any way.
Is there something that can be done from a policy point of view at the state level in the legislature that can enhance that growth, not only in numbers of graduates, but in quality?
Well, my sense is that we have a very serious link with our K through 12 system. We have to, at the universities, begin to make sure that we're improving that system as well, and aligning and articulating the needs K through the university. As we do that, I think we improve the possibility and the enrollment situations as expectations are met, if we do those things in the long run. In the short run, we're still going to have to need a lot of funding to carry this out. However, I think in the long run, we will do just fine. Eventually, I think we'll meet most expectations, and we'll have across the board, we'll have the enrollments at the University of Arizona like the other two universities as well.
Details on the state budget and other legislative action are on our website, azpm.org. A correction from last week's program. We wrongly identified the party affiliation of State Senator Linda Lopez. She's a Democrat. That's our program for Friday, June 14th, 2013. For Arizona Week, I'm Michael Chihak.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support.